In today's video, we are going to talk about what is nuclear war and what is Armageddon. What's the difference between them? Is there any survivors after these events? And what will be the consequences for the rest of the world? All of this and more in today's video. So let's start. First, let's define our terms. Nuclear war. This is when two or more countries use nuclear weapons against each other. If a nuclear war or Armageddon were to occur, the further away from the epicenter of the nuclear blasts, the better the chances of survival. However, even people who are far away from the epicenters will still have to deal with the consequences of a nuclear winter. This is when the smoke and dust from the nuclear blasts block out the sun, leading to a global cooling effect. A nuclear winter could have devastating consequences for the rest of the world, including the potential for mass starvation and the breakdown of society. The vast majority of people would be killed instantly from the initial nuclear blasts, and those who survive the initial blasts would likely die from radiation poisoning or starvation in the aftermath. And if you liked the video, don't forget to share it with your friends and family. The immediate consequences of a nuclear war or Armageddon would be devastating. The initial nuclear blasts would cause massive destruction and loss of life. In addition, the radiation from the blasts would contaminate large areas of land, making them uninhabitable for humans for years or even centuries. The death and destruction caused by the bombs would be unimaginable, and the long-term consequences for the rest of the world could be just as bad. We can only hope that this never happens in our lifetime. There may be a small number of people who survive, but they would have to face the harsh reality of a nuclear winter. This is the worst-case scenario of mutually assured destruction, which would likely result in a global nuclear winter. The nuclear blasts would release large amounts of radioactive material into the atmosphere. This would have serious implications for human health, including increased rates of cancer and birth defects. In addition, the nuclear blasts would likely trigger a nuclear winter, which would have devastating consequences for the environment. It is derived from the Book of Revelation in the Christian Bible. The term refers to the final battle between good and evil, which will ultimately end in the victory of good. In short, it means the end of the world. The first use would be considered a strategic or tactical nuclear weapon employed during wartime. For example, two countries could engage in a limited nuclear exchange without causing the total destruction of the world. This would not be considered an Armageddon scenario. However, if one country launches a preemptive nuclear strike against another country, and both countries have enough nuclear weapons to destroy each other, then it could potentially lead to an Armageddon scenario. Even if only one side survives the initial nuclear blasts, the long-term consequences for the rest of the world could be catastrophic, due to things like nuclear fallout and a nuclear winter. A preemptive nuclear strike is when a country launches a nuclear attack against another country with the intention of crippling its ability to respond with nuclear weapons. A retaliatory nuclear strike is when a country responds to a nuclear attack from another country with its own nuclear attack. Mutually assured destruction, also known as MAD, is a doctrine of military strategy and national security, based on the idea that a total nuclear war between two or more nuclear powers result in a complete destruction of all involved. Armageddon. So what's the difference between them? A nuclear war can be part of an Armageddon scenario, but it doesn't necessarily have to lead to one. Can anyone survive a nuclear war or Armageddon? The chances of survival would depend on a number of factors, such as the number of nuclear weapons used, the locations of the nuclear blasts, and the availability of food and water. What are the consequences for the rest of the world? A global nuclear war could potentially lead to a nuclear winter. Even if a nuclear war or Armageddon were to occur, the long-term consequences would be just as devastating. In conclusion, a nuclear war is a terrifying prospect that should never happen. Thank you for watching. Please leave your thoughts in the comments section below.